I'm not gonna lie to y'all. This is a extremely depressing injury for Atlanta Hawks fans. Jalen Johnson has torn his labrum and will undergo season-ending surgery. He had obviously been averaging 19, 10, and 5 for the Hawks this season and had been, in my personal opinion, their best player. Now, I get that that is a controversial take. I think a lot of people will be like, "No, Trae Young's the best player." Honestly, at the end of the day, the guy's hurt, so it doesn't really matter that much who I think the best player on the team is. He was obviously one of the two most important players on the team, but the honest truth is, I don't think the Hawks are going to be good without him. It is the complete truth. They've been struggling recently as of late anyway, 6 losses in a row, and they're in a position here in the standings now where things are just becoming more and more precarious for them. Obviously, I think they're still going to be a play-in team, mostly because of the weakness of the East, to be totally honest, but I just think it's really depressing and really disappointing that this is how the Hawks season is kind of falling apart after a really impressive, resilient bounce back year, I would say. And the reason that I say Jalen Johnson is their best player, because he does everything for the Hawks in a way that Trae Young doesn't. Trae Young as a playmaker is crucial to their offense, but I think as a whole there's a real argument to be made that Jalen Johnson's the best player. When you look at plus minus this season, he's the only player with a positive plus minus who is a consistent rotation piece for this team. Trae Young is a -4. Kobe Buffkin is a -23. By the way, he's out for the season as well. Only played in 10 games. DeAndre Hunter's -27. Capella's -38. Congo -43. Bogdanovich -44. Vic Krejci's a 52. And then like other dudes, Dyson Daniels, Zach Ricochet are even worse. Despite how good Dyson Daniels is defensively, I don't think his offense is helping them offensively on the court at times. And I just think overall, Jalen Johnson he's the type of guy who's done everything for this team this season. I mean, the dude's he's only shot 31% from 3 as a whole on 4 attempts a game. He was shooting the 3-ball better earlier in the year, sure, but he's 19 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, a steal and a half, and a block per game. Almost 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio out of your power forward, a dude who's a legitimately high level rim protector, or not rim protector, but rim finisher, and like an underrated rim protector as well. There are just very few power forwards in basketball who do everything the way that Jalen Johnson has been able to do. And so do I think that he is the perfect player? No. Do I think there's a serious argument to be made that he has been the best player on the Hawks this season? Absolutely. And I don't think that they're going to be able to step up enough without him. I don't think it's going to be up to Trae to elevate his game to another level as a scorer, first and foremost. And the playmaking from Trae, he's leading the league in assists, has been phenomenal, but he's going to have to get that scoring up to 25, 26 points a game. Dyson Daniels, you're going to need him to step up offensively as well, which isn't really his strong suit. Now, he's obviously had such an amazing season defensively, but offensively, only about 31% from 3 in his own right as a guard is not ideal. You'd like to see that number up a bit as the shooting guard for the team, and you want to see him scoring the ball better. DeAndre Hunter off the bench has had an incredible season. He obviously is the guy who I think is the best candidate to step into the starting lineup with consistency now that Jalen Johnson is out. He's only started 2 games this season, but I think he will probably start a lot more. Averaging 19 points a game, 39% plus from 3 this year, and he's also been efficient from inside the arc at 52.5% from 2-point range. I think DeAndre Hunter really has been impressive this year in terms of his jump as a scorer off the dribble, but now he needs to have a jump as a playmaker as well if they're going to stay competitive, because his assist turnover ratio is only about a 1-to-1 at 1.5 assists to 1.5 turnovers. His ability to score for himself and create for himself this year has been a huge step forward, and I just think I'm surprised in general that he's taken this big of a leap as a player this season, considering he's in like his 7th season. Generally, you don't see 7th season leaps out of players, but he's been really good. He's just going to need to be even better, because he's going to have to be a better playmaker. He's going to have to be a better rebounder. He's going to have to be more physical. Like, you're just going to need a better performance out of guys like DeAndre Hunter, guys like Zach Ricochet, who's obviously struggled this year for the most part, only 28% from 3, but has certainly shown some flashes. It's going to have to be a team effort for sure to try to pick up the pieces and fill that gap from Jalen Johnson. But the fact that he has by far the best plus minus of any player on the team, especially any rotation player, is a real concern, because I think he's been their most winning player. He's been the guy who leads this team to victory consistently. And look, I mean, they've lost 6 games in a row, so first and foremost, that's not good. When did he last play? What was his last game? His last game was the 23rd against Toronto, and he got hurt 11 minutes into the game. But yeah, so that 23rd they lose. He only played 11 minutes. They lost the 2 games before that to New York and Detroit, 2 decent teams. Then they get blown out by Toronto. They lose to Minnesota and they lose to Houston, which aren't horrible losses, but as a whole, it's painful to lose twice to Toronto, first and foremost, but 6 losses in a row is a rough spot to be for a team that had been 22-19 and kind of one of the better stories in the NBA before that. I made a video on them right after they beat Boston, actually, and I was like, yeah, this team's playing good. I like the Hawks. I think they're playing well, and I think there's a lot to like about that team. That's kind of my perspective. And then all of a sudden, it's just like, I don't know. It's just gone downhill very quickly, which is unfortunate. Definitely not what you wanted to see from this Hawks season. And I think, look, realistically, look at the standings. Who's going to fill this void? I mean, they're the 9 seed in the East at this point. When you look at even net rating, the 8 teams above them look to be all better. I mean, Orlando's going to get Franz Wagner back at some point, and he has been a huge contributor for that team this season. They're going to immediately get a boost from getting Franz back. The Pistons are young and not incredibly consistent, but they're a team that could easily be active in the trade market at the deadline and try to improve their roster. Now, who's to say the Hawks couldn't be active at the trade deadline either? I wouldn't say that, but the problem is they traded, I mean, they got some assets back for DeJounte Murray, which is a good deal, because they had given up a bunch of assets for DeJounte Murray, and now they got some of them back in that deal. But I don't think they have like ridiculous assets, and I don't think for a team that's the 9 seed in the East right now and just lost their best player, and even with him was probably their best, like the 7 seed. I find it a little bit challenging to see them expending a bunch of assets to make this team better to still be a first round exit. It just doesn't make a ton of sense. And so I think when teams around them like the Magic are going to get better because of health and potentially the trade market, the Pistons likely potentially going to make some moves at the deadline that'll improve that roster as well. And I mean, the Bulls are probably going to get worse, but the Sixers, if they get healthy, are going to be better. We'll see what happens there. I just realistically think this is a team that's probably going to lose in the playoff. That's just probably how it's going to go. And is that a horrible failure of a season? Not really. No, I mean, they showed some progress and some growth this year, and they have an interesting young core going forward for sure. And you just hope Dyson Daniels can continue to develop as an offensive player. You hope Jalen Johnson can come back and be the same player that he was this year. You hope for more offensive development from a guy like Onyeka Okongwu, and maybe you need another big at some point because Capella's probably not the long-term answer at this point. I'm not sure that duo in general is. You're going to need to figure some things out, though, if you are the Atlanta Hawks. This is a disappointing way to end a promising season, and I guess they still have, they've played 47 games, so they still got 35 left, but I have a feeling those 35 games might not go very well. I wouldn't be surprised if they're 15-20 or even worse potentially over the next 35 games. They wind up kind of limping to the 9 or the 10 seed and losing in the first round of the play-in, or maybe at best the second round of the play-in. I'd be surprised if this team winds up being a real playoff team at this point. And do I really entirely blame them? No, not really. When you lose your best player, it's hard to make a lot of progress, especially when you are already a team that's not like an elite level contender by any means. So it's a tough injury, and I feel bad for Hawks fans, but it definitely probably spells the end of the season for this team in a lot of ways, and that is a shame for a team that has shown a lot of growth and a lot of promise this season. But we'll see what happens. Definitely a shame of an injury. Never want to see stuff like this happen around the league, but I hope y'all did enjoy the video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. I'll be back with more NBA content very, very soon, and I appreciate y'all. Peace.